the Jets, fuck the Jets, fuck the fucking Jets. Fuck the Jets, fuck the Jets, fuck the fucking Jets. Fuck the Jets, fuck the Jets, fuck the fucking Jets. Fuck the Jets, fuck the Jets, fuck the Jets. Fuck the Jets.
Fuck them.
Fuck them.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to Jets Week, the last week of the regular season. It's not Jets Week if we don't sing the song. I tried to get Mike to sing the song. He said, no, that's just me and Josh's thing. We'll see if I can get him to sing the song later. Maybe, maybe not. It's doubtful. But either way, we're having fun. We got one game left this season, and amazingly, the Miami Dolphins are still in it for the playoffs. They have playoff hopes, albeit slim, not as slim as they were a week ago, but Miami is still alive. If you haven't noticed yet, Josh not here, taking his family on a nice, much needed, much deserved vacation. So thank you, as always, to Mike for joining us. Mike, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. Happy New Year. And yes, I'm saying it on January 2nd because per Larry David, you only have to the 3rd to wish people a Happy New Year. After that, enough already. We've already seen the New Year. And so no Happy New Year's after January 3rd per Larry David. So it's the 2nd as we record so I can wish people a Happy New Year.
Absolutely. I kind of love that as a rule, actually. I fully agree.
It's a great episode of Curb where someone like a week or two after wishes him Happy New Year at the gym, he goes, what's this Happy New Year? It's like a week ago. Enough with the Happy New Year. She goes, no, it's still Happy. And I go, no. You got 3 days. After the 3rd, enough already.
Yeah. So welcome to the Same Old Dolphins Show. I'm Aaron the Brain. With me today is Mike. Josh will be back on Thursday for the recap show, which will end up being I don't know if it'll be the official season recap or if it'll be the recap of week 18 and getting ready for a playoff appearance. I don't know. We'll see.
Playoffs.
Playoffs? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game. And that's where we were at 2-6. And
Pretty
now
much.
all of a sudden, if we win a game and we get one result that we need, the Dolphins are a playoff team, believe it or not. And we're going to get into kind of what that means and what this game, the stakes for this game are, big picture for certain players, for the team as a whole. But first, Mike, how was your holiday?
It was great. Very relaxing holiday for Christmas Eve and stuff was great. Was with the family and stuff like that. And then the past couple days, New Year's Eve, I'm not one to go out anymore. That's crazy night. New Year's Day was very relaxed. Watch a lot of college football. I love the bowl games. I love college football. All these bowl games, they've just been fantastic. There's been a lot of good ones, even the smaller bowls that, aren't in the playoffs. Toledo versus Pitt was a great game. You had Louisville, Washington was a great game. There's been so many great games. And now we're down to the Final Four in the playoffs with Notre Dame here about to seal a victory. And yeah, it's been very relaxing. How was your holiday?
Mine was good. Josh and his wife and their friends who we've become friendly with, my wife and I, they had us over their house and we hung out with the kids and that was fun. And then when the kids went to bed, we hung out, we watched New Year's Rockin' Eve. And I got to say, I haven't been watching New Year's Rockin' Eve for probably the last 15 years. It was something that, my parents used to watch. Yep. And if I went to a New Year's party back in the day, it was always on, but I probably haven't watched it in the last 15 to 20 years. And watching it this year, I was and Josh and I had the same reaction was, man, this show is really tailored to our generation at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, we got TLC, we got Fat Joe and Ja Rule. I mean, Carrie Underwood was a little late for our generation, but still kind of there. I thought it was surprisingly enjoyable, which might mean that I'm getting old. I don't know.
Ryan Seacrest, man. You're on the Ryan Seacrest bandwagon. Him there hosting the show. There's a lot of competition. In the past, it was just that show. There was no competition. Now, CNN has Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen, which they've had those guys on for a few years now. So they've been on. I know CBS had on a live show from Nashville with a bunch of big names singing country music. I think NBC might even had a show live somewhere. I don't know. So it used to be just the ABC one with Dick Clark and then Ryan Seacrest. Now there's tons of competition on New Year's Eve.
It is, but apparently none of them stream.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently if you don't have cable or live TV with like Hulu or whatever, none of these are really streaming at all. So we really didn't have much of a choice. But, anyway, it was enjoyable and it was fun. And then the next day, wifey and I just hung out and watched a whole bunch of reality TV, which we could talk a little bit more in the bonus episode.
Yeah, the bonus
after this. But let's get into it. Week 18, Dolphins 8-8, the most same old Dolphins record there could possibly be. Going into a game on the road against the Jets, who have been a dumpster fire this year. And look, they've got a chance to win a game, get some help, and make the playoffs. I want to first get into what this game could mean for the team in general, big picture, a win versus a loss. We've kind of teased it. It's been talked about, and really since the win against San Francisco, Josh asked me, hey, did this win against San Francisco change any of your narratives about where this team is? And, I started to kind of get into it, and he said, well, no. Wait until, you can't say it changes your narratives if you go out and you win the next two games. So in a vacuum, no, it didn't change any narratives. But I had said, I was like, well, if they win against Cleveland and then they beat the Jets and they finish at 9-8, it kind of puts into perspective what this entire season has been, that after everything that has gone wrong, they still end up with a winning record. Maybe they make the playoffs, maybe they don't. But if you look back and you say, and obviously now we're talking about not just missing 4 games, but we're talking about Tua missing 6 games. If you look back at, the 4 games that he missed earlier this season, and you look at the quarterback play in those games that he missed, and you could very easily say the Dolphins probably win 2 of those games that they lost. Probably the Indianapolis game and probably the Tennessee game, I would say. They probably win those games if Tua
even
plays.
Seattle probably, because that game was close.
The Seattle game, I kind of felt like they were overmatched, but again, possibly because that was Skylar Thompson playing in that game, and the offense couldn't do anything. And it's like, so what would the season look like if they had won 2 of those games and they finished the season 11-6? And what I would say is that you'd still have all the same narratives that this team has carried because they still wouldn't have beaten anybody. But you would have, in a year where they took a step back, maybe they were trying for it to be a more lateral step, but they took a step back to basically lengthen their winning window instead of pushing all the chips in for this year and having a big problem cap space wise in a year or two. To do the reset sort of and come away with the same record, the same results, and put yourself in a position where you actually have all this flexibility going into next year. I think I would have taken that as a win over the course of the season. And it's amazing, how different things look from a few weeks ago. We were 2-6, even after the Houston game when the playoff hopes basically died. Realistically, this is a team that if and I realize it's an if, and it's Tua, and he gets hurt almost every year, so it's part of the conversation that you can't just delete that. But if Tua doesn't decide to run over or try to run over DeMar Hamlin, this Dolphins team is probably a playoff team. And they're probably finishing with the same record that they finished last year if they win this game. What do you say to that, Mike?
I'd say if they win this week, they're at 9, and if he didn't get hurt and they're at either 10 or 11, I think there'd be 2 narratives. One is We lost Hunt, we lost Wilkins, we lost Andrew Van Ginkel, and we won the same amount of games. And I think the narrative around the head coach would be very different than it is now. And I think people would say, just wait till next year when we are going to replace these guys, hopefully. We're going to be ready. And also, we came in second, but the team that came in first was the Bills, who are probably going to go 14-3. Tip your cap to them. But we still won a lot of games, even though we lost a lot of key players. And I think it'd be a lot of rah-rah amongst the fan base of the Dolphins. The other narrative is, though, if they would have won those 2 games earlier and they end up with 11 wins, but Tua is not able to play during the playoffs because he got hurt versus Houston, that would drive this fan base crazy because they would – like right now the fan base is frustrated that he ain't out there. They're frustrated. If they were at 11 wins and they think they have a chance to make a run at the Super Bowl, because if you win 11 games in a regular season, you're thinking, hey, we got a chance to win a Super Bowl. And if he wasn't there for that, this fan base would be irate. Right now it's frustrated. It would be irate. That's number 2. And the other thing is, even if they won 11, say they beat the Titans and the Colts, maybe Seattle, whatever, but they still didn't beat one good team all year. They still lost all their games in cold weather type of deal. That narrative wouldn't go away, and the fan base would still be hammering that. But if they were at 11 wins, this season is viewed very differently because no matter how this weekend ends, and they end up with 9 wins or only 8, if they make the playoffs, sneak in because the Broncos choke, or if they're on the outside looking in, 2024 will be looked at as a disappointment. And if you're at 11 wins, it's not a disappointment. That's just reality. So, it's a lot to unpack there, which I just said, I know, but really it comes down to if the quarterback could have stayed healthy, this season would have played out very differently. But even if he stayed healthy in September and got hurt now, oh boy, man, this fan base would be on the ledge of a roof right now, ready to jump. They'd be so frustrated to have the rug pulled out from under them so late in the season. But this is a team they built. This is the way they have this team built. They invested a lot of money in a quarterback who's hurt. But it would change your perception around things a lot if they did win a couple of those games. Even if they won a couple of those games early in the season with a backup quarterback, if they were prepared with a backup quarterback, then you're saying, wow, look, we won 11 games. You won a few games with a backup quarterback, more than a few, really, because you won last week. Maybe you win next week, and then you win 1 or 2 at the start of the year. We're a good team. We're a good team. We just got to keep a quarterback on the field. But that's not going to be the case. And I think that's why the narrative and the perception of this team is what it is and not what it could have been if they were more prepared at backup quarterback heading into the season.
Yeah, and I think the reality is that the narrative around this team would still be the same.
Can't beat good teams.
It would still be, you can't beat good teams. You're not a true contender. Yeah. You're soft. All of those things. And all of the conversation, of course, around Tua would all be the same. So until they actually do that, until they actually beat good teams, this team could finish 13-4 in a regular season, and it doesn't matter because until they actually win big games against good teams when it matters, the narrative is not going to end. But what I would say is that it's not nothing to win 7 of your last games of the season if the Dolphins manage to beat the Jets. And it speaks to, with the players that Miami will have coming back, with the cap space that they can create, with the draft capital that they have, I think this narrative of this team being completely directionless and it needed to be blown up a few weeks ago, I think it's shown that this team is not terrible. This is not a team that does not have a pathway forward. I think the biggest problem is that if the Dolphins had a quarterback that you felt supremely confident was going to be a high-level quarterback for the next decade, you would not question the winning window and you would not question the build because you would say, oh, we could do exactly what the Bills are doing right now, which is we offset a couple of high-priced players that, people thought we'd take a step back, but our quarterback was able to basically make up for that and was able to basically carry the football team. And you can do that while you sort of rebuild other aspects. We saw the Patriots do that for years with Tom Brady. They went from being a powerhouse defense with a manage the game quarterback, and then Tom Brady became a superstar, and then they went and they built all these they put all these offensive weapons around them while the defense was rebuilding, and they put up a bunch of points and they won a bunch of games. And then as those players started to get old, the defense started getting better, but the quarterback play remained a constant, and because of that, they remained class of the league. That's what having a true franchise quarterback can do, is that you're not dependent on the rest of your roster being great to be in your winning window. That's kind of the biggest indictment of Tua Tagovailoa at this point, is that no matter how good Tua is, no matter how close to his ceiling he plays, you still feel like, well, you've got to win right now with this winning window while you've got Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Ramsey and Jaylen Waddle, before these guys, Jaylen Waddle, not so much, but before Jaylen Ramsey gets old and Tyreek Hill gets old, so that you can maximize these guys' potential. And that's your winning window, because the second those guys go down, then you're going to have to really kind of pause and take a few steps back. Well, if you had, a Josh Allen type or a Patrick Mahomes, you wouldn't really be saying that. You'd be pretty confident, and you'd be like, hey, we've got all these draft picks. We could rebuild while Tua is still at the top of his game, and we'll never take a step back, and we're in good shape. But the injury issues with Tua and his uncertainty as a player going forward is really the dark cloud that hangs over this football team. And so that kind of takes us to what else is at stake in this game, which is the number 2 quarterback position. Because a lot of people scoffed, you and I included, at the idea when it was reported that Tyler Huntley was already being talked about being offered a contract to come back as the number 2 quarterback for the team next year. And we said, well, we don't have a problem with Tyler Huntley coming back, as a competition or really as the number 3 quarterback. But if you're coming into next year with the plan as Tyler Huntley as the number 2 quarterback, I think that's a bad plan. I still think that that's probably a bad plan, but to Tyler Huntley's credit, he played a good game last week against the Browns. It was against the Browns. It wasn't a perfect game, but it was a good game. He played an efficient game.
No turnovers. He moved the ball. The team scored. He did some things with his legs that mitigated some of the poor offensive line play. And at the end of the day, he put forth a competent offensive performance in spite of really the team having no running game. He was the team's running game too last week. So with Tua likely not to play this week against the Jets, Tyler Huntley's going to get another opportunity to essentially audition for this team's number 2 quarterback spot. Personally, I would be of the opinion of no matter what, I would still go out and get a veteran quarterback. I would get a veteran quarterback that has a good amount of starting experience, who has a ceiling of being a starting caliber quarterback long-term. Not necessarily are they viewed like, and you and I talked about this, I think a little bit in private through text message or it might've been on the Discord, which by the way, if you're not a member of the Dolphins Talk Patreon, you should be, because you'll get access to that Discord where we talk about everything all the time, and you don't have to wait for 1 or 2 shows a week. But we talked about that if the Dolphins are going to go out and get a backup like next year, it should be somebody like a Daniel Jones or like like maybe someone
a Gardner.
Someone who's started more than a handful of games.
Yeah, But like, I think the example that you brought up was a guy like Sam Darnold.
Well, that's out the window. He ain't getting a backup job.
But it's not. You're not getting Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
The thing is that Sam Darnolds exist. There are guys,
Zach Wilson, Mac Jones,
that were highly drafted prospects that had raw tools, that were in bad situations, and that are seen as bad quarterbacks right now, or seen as backup quarterbacks right now. But it's not out of the realm of possibility because we've seen it. You've seen it with Sam Darnold. If somebody would have said to you before this season when McCarthy got hurt that Sam Darnold was going to lead the Vikings to 14 wins and have the kind of season that he's having, everybody would have laughed at you. But that's where we're at. So I'm looking at guys like Mitch Trubisky. I'm looking at a guy, and I'm not saying that these guys are going to be Sam Darnold.
No, but it's that type of player. Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, someone like that.
Even Justin Fields. And although I don't think he's a great fit for what the Dolphins do, I think guys like that have a certain level of athleticism and skill that if they figure it out mentally, they could actually hit a ceiling of being a quality NFL starting quarterback. And you can get those guys on the cheap as your number 2. And Tyler Huntley can be your emergency quarterback, because if you have Tua, I think you probably need to have the third quarterback.
Yeah. Can I say something real quick? Because this came out past 24 hours or so. I don't know if you've seen this yet. The Vikings, now they signed Sam Darnold 1 year, $10 million. They took J.J. McCarthy in the draft. He rips up his knee because he was supposed to start this season, rips up his knee in August, out for the year. The Vikings are now entertaining the thought, we're going to pay Sam Darnold like big money, keep him, and we'll trade J.J. McCarthy.
Right.
What? If you're a team like Miami who has, let's be honest, we got to be fair about this, questionable number 1 quarterback who can't stay on the field all except for 1 year. Now, yes, would you trade for McCarthy? He's got no experience outside of a few preseason games, but if quarterback 1 in Miami, this continues where he's just not on the field, you have a young guy you can develop and be your number 1 quarterback long-term on a rookie deal. Now, you're going to have to trade for him. Might cost you a first or a second. If it's a second, I'd say yes. A first, you really have to question that. He is coming off a major knee injury. There's that. But would something like that entice you to at least consider it?
I think you answered it. If it's a second round pick, yes, I'm interested. If it's a first round pick,
I've already get something back.
I think I can make the argument for it. And obviously that's kind of like, well, if you're going to bring Tyler Huntley back as the number 2, you're not going to spend a lot of money there. And then you're giving a rookie deal. You're trading for a guy who's on a rookie deal, and you don't have to pay his signing, and you don't have to pay his signing bonus. So you're basically getting him on the Josh Rosen contract, like what we did a few years ago. The difference being that when the Dolphins traded for Josh Rosen had a lot of bad tape out there, whereas McCarthy played 1 preseason game, played really well, and there was a lot of hype, but then he blew up his knee. So I would say that I don't know that you're going to get a second round, because if I'm Minnesota,
someone will give you a first, like the Jets, or somebody will probably give you a first.
Yeah. And I think if I'm Minnesota, as much as look, I'm going to go in with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold doesn't have a track record. If I'm Minnesota, I'm not certain that I'm giving Sam Darnold a 5-year deal.
But I'm not letting him walk out that door either after this year. That's the problem.
No, but I'm probably going to give him like a 2 or a 3-year deal, so that if the Sam Darnold experiment doesn't work, I can move on from it. And if that's the case, I think there's flexibility there for Minnesota to say, well, hey, we don't have to trade J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, true. That's true.
We could hold on to McCarthy as the backup if we don't get what we want. And so I think Minnesota has the leverage there, depending on what kind of contract they give Sam Darnold, where they could really ask for a 1. And I think somebody will give it to them. And
absolutely.
So I think it'd be very interesting. My gut would say that the Dolphins wouldn't do it for a 1. Although if there's one thing we know about Chris Grier is give him a discount on a player coming off of a knee injury.
And here's the other thing too. Where did JJ McCarthy play college ball? He's a Michigan man. Mr. Ross loves his Michigan men. So you got to throw that into the pot. If Chris Grier wants to placate the owner and make sure he's got more goodwill. Remember that guy who won your Michigan team a national championship not too long ago? Coming to Miami.
Well, I'll say this. For all the foibles, for all the venom that's been spewed at Stephen Ross, there's one thing about Stephen Ross where he will undeniably always get the W, which is he wanted this team to draft Lamar Jackson.
And he wanted Jim Harbaugh quarterback or as a head coach too. You know, Mr. Ross might know a thing or two.
he might know more than we give him credit for, and maybe he's a little bit too hands off.
That's I've said that for a while.
Maybe we need him to have a little bit more Jerry Jones. But I digress. I think it's going to be to me that's the biggest storyline. It's not even about whether the Dolphins make the playoffs because big picture, I don't really care if this team makes it.
They're going to lose by 50 to Buffalo if they do. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, like even if they make the playoffs, I have no delusion about what this team's going to do. They're not going to win a playoff game. So it's really about evaluating what they have. And it's another good opportunity to evaluate what you have in Snoop Huntley. So if Snoop Huntley goes out and plays well, I think it's certainly going to ramp up the spinning of Tyler Huntley can be the team's backup quarterback, especially because if they win the game, if Tyler Huntley wins the game and the Dolphins win the game and Tyler Huntley plays well, then he will be 3-2 as the backup quarterback.
And he might be, and if they somehow sneak in the playoffs, he might be starting the playoff game, it sounds like.
Yeah. But I mean, the bigger thing is that what did we say coming into the season? And what do we say every year with Tua? Is that like Tua's going to get hurt. So can your backup keep the team afloat? Well, if your backup goes 3-2, that's pretty darn good. I don't care what team you are, and I don't care what your expectations are.
And if he wins this week, he's probably going to do it with 2 backup offensive tackles at left tackle and right tackle. That's impressive too. Like, look, I'm not a big Snoop Huntley fan. Again, if you want to have him back as your third quarterback or something, that's fine. All for that. I wouldn't want him as a permanent number 2 just because I think they need someone with a little bit more polish in that role. But there's no denying he beat the Patriots early this year. He beat the Browns. And if he beats the Jets with 2 backup offensive tackles when everything's on the line, there is something to be said for that, like you said. And you got to give him his flowers in a vacuum for that. But then, yes, I think like you and I, when we step back, we're looking at those other guys like the Mac Joneses, Zach Wilsons, and those types of guys is maybe more of a higher ceiling number 2 quarterback in a new system. Because you have to remember, just those 2 guys alone, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, they were picked by 2 teams that were inept with offense. Say what you want about Mike McDaniel, and I'm not his biggest fan right now, but he can probably repair a quarterback to make him look a little better than he was with where they came from. So I'd be okay with something like that. Kirk Cousins, I don't know. He might get paid to start somewhere. I don't know if he'd come to Miami as day number 2, but there's guys out there, like we've said, who are probably better long-term number 2 quarterbacks. But if Snoop Huntley wins this week, got to give it to him. A lot of credit.
Yeah, especially if he plays well. Because, I mean, look, there's a difference between winning in spite of your quarterback and winning because of your quarterback. I would say last week, the Dolphins' defense was the primary reason why they won the game. But offensively, they won because of their quarterback.
Hill had his best game of the year outside of week 1. Yeah.
He was the only thing that was working on offense was, him throwing the ball and him running the ball because they had nothing else. So it'll be interesting to see, and we'll have all offseason to debate what the Dolphins should do, what the Dolphins will do, what the Dolphins could do. And it'll be a lot of fun. And we'll see. Maybe the offseason starts next week. You never know. So I want to get into the actual game, what we think, the keys to the game are on both sides of the ball and how we think things are going to go. We'll make our predictions and whatnot. But first, a word from our sponsor.
The DolphinsTalk.com podcast network is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive, Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship it to you. International fans, too. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com.
Caneswear.com. And also, this is a good time to just remind you, I know I made brief mention of it before, but if you have not yet joined the Patreon, the cool thing about the Patreon is we are going to keep content flowing all off season. We're not stopping. We're going to be doing some fun things. We're going to be talking about other teams, other things going on in the league, other things going on in sports, other things going on not in sports. Mike and I like to talk a little bit of reality TV, so we'll probably do a little bit of that. We'll talk about food. We'll do some retro rewatches. And you get all of it. All of the bonus content that you're not getting now, not to mention the live Monday recaps, which obviously this will be the last one. This coming Monday will be the last Monday recap, unless the Dolphins make the playoffs. But going into next season, our Monday live streams are only streamed on the Dolphins Talk Patreon. So for as little as $3 a month, you get access to all of that. Patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Go there, subscribe. We would appreciate it. And frankly, you'll appreciate it because it's more than worth your money.
Here's a couple things real quick. Number one, I want to give a congratulations. We did fantasy football leagues this year. One fantasy league, we did a pick'em league, and the winner, even though he didn't win the league, Josh technically won. But since Josh is, part of Dolphins Talk Extra, he ain't going to get the prize. The prize is going to go to John Waddle from Niagara Falls. He came in second and lost the championship game to Josh. To Josh. So John, congratulations. Which I have already reached out to him because I have his address here. I'm going to send you that prize in the next few days, all depending on how much snow we get. I will send that prize out to you here in the next few days. So we're going to do more contests. We're going to have more prizes where we give away rare bobblehead dolls. We gave away a Mercury Morris autographed jersey like last month. Each month I'm going to try to do a small contest, but you got to be a part of Dolphins Talk Extra to win it. So there's that. And also, we're going to do shows behind the paywall at Extra that are going to be some about the Dolphins, obviously, but also some shows. I'm going to do pro wrestling shows, maybe. We're going to do college football. I am still doing. There's going to be other shows, not all about the Dolphins. We have fun doing shows, but not about the Dolphins as well. And when it comes to the draft, which ain't that far away, folks, we're going to have exclusive shows about the draft at Dolphins Talk Extra. We're already talking about lining that up. So patreon.com/Dolphins Talk is $3 a month. Sign up. It's a lot of fun. Trust me. Trust me. Anytime someone says, trust me, trust me.
So the people have waited long enough. We got to talk about this actual game. As much as, it pains me to even want to talk about the X's and O's with the Dolphins and the Jets, because it's pretty bad football. How do we see this thing going? Let's start on the offensive side of the ball, because that's kind of the perfect segue from where we were talking last about Snoop Huntley. Is this a matchup where Snoop Huntley can go out and play similarly to how he played last week against the Browns, given the injuries on the offensive line, still the injury to Jaylen Waddle, his status up in the air? Is this a situation where Miami matches up, and do we think Tyler Huntley can replicate his success from last week?
He better. It's got to be the same type of offense as last week. The offensive line's in shambles. Armstead probably not playing. Lamb on IR. He's out for the year. You're looking at Patrick Paul at left tackle and Jackson Carman at right tackle. We know Liam Eichenberg, he struggles to say the least, and he's in the rotation with Wynn. Why it's a rotation? Don't ask me. But the offensive line is going to be problematic. I don't care who we play, how bad the team we're playing is. Wide receiver, you might have Waddle, you might not. I think the offense is going to be pretty much like it was last week, where they're going to drop back to pass, and if nothing there, you tell them to tuck it and run. And that's pretty much our offense. And if they can run the ball with more success than they did versus Cleveland, great. I wouldn't bank on it, again, with that offensive line. But, try at the start of the game with Achane and maybe get Mostert out there. Try. But if it's not having success, bail on it quick. Because you have to go into the game not knowing what's going on with Chiefs Broncos to, we got to go in there and try to win at all costs. And you got to do what's working. And I think it's going to be very similar to last week. We can sit here, mock the Jets, laugh at the Jets all you want. Here's what I know. 3 weeks ago, I was down in Miami to watch that game. The Jets are going up and down the field on Miami in a game with Tua, and we couldn't stop them until like the final minute of the game when they had to. So don't laugh at the Jets too much, because they cleaned our clock for like 3 quarters and 12 minutes the last time we played them. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. But on offense, the same thing we saw versus the Browns, replicate that, because I don't think you can try to do much more than that with who's available.
Yeah, and the last time these two teams played, the Dolphins did not have success running the football at all. Devon Achane had 14 carries for 24 yards, and nobody else on the team had more than 2 carries. As a team, they ran 19 times for 44 yards for a whopping 2.3 yards per carry. They had success moving the ball because Tua had a great game throwing the ball. I think if you're going into this game against the Jets, I don't know exactly. Mike, you've got the news on the injuries. Are there any big injuries on the defensive side of the ball for the Jets that maybe, because the last time these two teams played, Sauce Gardner didn't play, Mosley didn't play. Are those guys still out?
As of Thursday's practice, Sauce Gardner did not practice yesterday or today with a hamstring, and Quinnen Williams did not practice yesterday or today with a hamstring. So I don't know what that means. I really haven't been paying close attention to the Jets since the last time we played them. I know last week they got destroyed by the Bills and they kind of quit in the middle of the game. Like, they quit. That was an ugly performance. I know that much because I saw a little bit of it. But outside of those two, which are 2 big players in Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, I don't know if they're expected to play, but they haven't practiced this week yet. And if they don't practice on Friday, then they're not playing. So there's that there. Yeah, look, this Jets team, this game's going to go one of 2 ways. The Jets are just going to totally mail it in and we're done. We quit last week. We're done. And they're going to let Miami do whatever they want. Or they're going to be motivated. We're going to play the spoiler and we're going to end their season, not the Broncos. And they're going to be motivated. I don't know which Jets team you're going to get. Rodgers, I have no idea if he's going to play. It sounds like he is. Adams, I think, is hurt too. I'm not sure. Not on the injury report, so maybe he's not. Maybe he's fine. But, it's a tough game because you don't know which Jets team is going to show. If the Jets who played the Bills last week shows up, I don't care what Miami does, they're going to win. If the Jets try, this might be like the game a few weeks ago where they almost beat Miami.
Yeah, and so what I will say is I would say Quinnen Williams being out, you should be able to run the ball up the middle if Quinnen Williams is out. But I don't really have faith in the Dolphins offensive line right now, and Jackson Carman on the outside, I think it's a problem. It's going to be an absolute problem. So I think it's going to take probably a Herculean effort from Tyler Huntley if the Dolphins defense doesn't play the way that it played the last couple of weeks. And that's kind of, that's going to be the other piece of this puzzle, because if the Dolphins defense can hold the Jets to less than 20 points, then you're not asking Tyler Huntley to carry you to victory. But can this Dolphins defense hold the Jets under 20 points? I would say if Aaron Rodgers plays, I'm not confident in the defense. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, I do have confidence in this defense. And that's kind of the defense in a nutshell. Strangely enough, and I know this is going to sound bizarre to everybody that's watched the Dolphins all season. But go ahead and look it up. In just about every statistical category this season, the Miami Dolphins are a top 10 defense.
Yeah, they're ranked third right now overall.
In just about everything. I mean, they're number 3 overall in yards per game allowed. They're top 10 in yards per play. They're top 10 in yards allowed per rush. They're top 10 in yards allowed per pass attempt. The only 2 areas where the team is struggling defensively, statistically, is creating turnovers and creating pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
And, that's a big thing. But ultimately, this defense has managed to be, statistically at least, a top 10 defense. The reality of the situation is that this defense is very mid. Is that when they play bad offenses, they look really good. And when they play good offenses, they look very underwhelming. And there's been a couple of games where they've played some not great offenses and still look pretty underwhelming. And so the Jets, the Raiders, this is not a great defensive team, but I think Anthony Weaver deserves some credit because he's put together and they've been playing their best football. The defense has been playing their best football the last 3 weeks of the season. Because even go back to the Houston game. Defense didn't play bad in the Houston game. Defense played a hell of a game against Houston, and the offense pissed the bed.
4 turnovers,
Yeah. And so the way the defense is trending, if the defense can play that kind of game, I think Tyler Huntley can do enough to win. But if the defense plays the way that they played the last time they played the Jets, I don't think they're scoring 30 points to beat the Jets this time.
No, they ain't scoring 30. And here's what's funny. I know there's fans of Dolphins out there going, yeah, we're 3rd ranked in defense. We're top 10 in all these categories. Anthony Weaver's the man. To quote Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. You know why? Vic Fangio's defense is ranked number 1. Number one. So, yes, Weaver's done great. Everyone likes Weaver for what he has talent-wise, which isn't much at safety. Hollins had a horrible year. Jaylen Phillips practically didn't play. Chubb misses the whole year. Campbell gives you limited snaps. The fact Weaver's got them ranked number 3, tip of the cap. But don't lose sight of everything that Vic's defense is number 1.
Yep, very true. Very true. And dispels the notion that the game suddenly had passed him by once he went to Miami. And again, underscores what a lot of people have been saying about Miami for years, ever since Mike McDaniel took over this team, which is a soft football team.
They don't work hard, lazy.
It wasn't a soft football team under Flores. They had their own other issues under Brian Flores. And now they're on the other end of the spectrum with Mike McDaniel. Anyway, do we think that this defense, can this defense continue to play the way that they've played the last 3 weeks? I know they weren't great necessarily against San Francisco, but overall, the one thing that I've seen from this defense, specifically the last 2 games, is that in the biggest moments of the game, in the second half of games, in the fourth quarter of games, the defense has played their best and come up with the key stops to put the game on ice, which is a very not same old Dolphins thing to do, by the way. Does this defense have it in them to have that kind of performance against the Jets? Or do we think that was just a product of San Francisco, making all kinds of mistakes, and then Cleveland making a whole bunch of mistakes?
I think it's probably a little both in reality, but here's what I think more so about this week too. When you look at the Dolphins and that side of the ball, you got a lot of guys, I won't say a lot, but a few guys who this game matters. For Calais Campbell, this might be the last time he puts on a uniform in the NFL. He's going to want to make the most of it. Whether they make the playoffs or not, this might be it for him, his final game ever. Jordan Poyer, I know he's on the injury report. If he does play, this might be his final game ever. So I think those 2 guys are going to go all out to make their last games in the NFL memorable ones. For someone like Holland, who's going to hit the open market, it's been a bad year. He has one more game to put good film on tape before he hits the open market to get paid. he might go balls to the wall, all out to have one tape that, he can say, hey, look at that final game. I really went out, So I think for individually, for a few guys, they're going to be really motivated to play well. But overall, Rodgers and the Jets have been terrible on offense all year, kind of except for the game versus Miami. So do I expect that to repeat itself? They probably will not play as well on offense this time around versus Miami, if I take a guess. I don't even know what the weather's supposed to be, because up here we're about to get hammered with snow and cold. I don't know what it will be down in New York City, New Jersey area. I'm sure it's going to be cold, if anything. I don't know about snow. But I do think they won't have as much success on offense against us like they did the first time around. But if it's Rodgers, they're going to have some success. And if you're Miami on that side of the ball, you have to limit that. If you let them score 24 or more, we might be screwed. You better keep them around 20 or less to give Huntley a chance to keep the team in the game and to win it. But I think for Miami on that side of the ball, you're going to have some motivated people here. For those two guys, they've had long time. They played many years in the NFL, and if this is their final game, they're going to want it to mean something.
Yeah, I agree. And just for your knowledge, the weather report, the weather forecast, it's forecasted to be a mostly sunny day, 35 degrees. So
not too bad.
It's cold. It's going to be cold, but it's not going to be super cold.
Yeah.
And I don't think the weather's going to be it should not be a major factor in the game. Let's put it that way.
Shouldn't be.
We didn't really put out the call for the hashtag one hot take. But if you want to put it in the comments section, in the chat here, tell us your hashtag one hot take. One hot take, one prediction of something that you think will happen in this game, but something that is not necessarily likely to happen, because that's what makes it hot. You can put it in the chat if you get it in here in the next couple of minutes. We'll read it online. I'm going to give you. You got one?
I got one.
All right.
Here's a hot take.
On us, Mike.
Tyreek Hill, punt return touchdown. Put it in the books.
Oh, yes. We did see Tyreek Hill returning punts last week. And my thought on that was, aside from, getting tired of the adventure that is Malik Washington returning punts, because it is very much an adventure. It's very good sometimes. It's very ugly sometimes. I also think that that's not necessarily a coincidence that they're doing that when Tua is out, because I think they're basically like, hey, we need to manufacture points however we can. So if we can get the ball in Tyreek Hill's hands on special teams, then, that's an opportunity to get some points on the board. So I like that. That's a good hot take. Let's see what we got in the chat. B Show 58 says Jordan Brooks pick 6. I love it. Jordan Brooks, one of the few guys on this roster this year that has actually overachieved and has been a pleasant surprise. Would love to see him get in the end zone with a pick 6. Jordan Murray's hashtag one hot take. Ingold passing touchdown to Tyreek Hill. That would be something. That would be something. Nobody else participating, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in with my hashtag one hot take. And, look, Josh is on vacation, but that doesn't mean the gimmick dies. It's the last game of the year. It hasn't happened all year, and that means, and no, not JV, it doesn't mean McDaniel wins a challenge, although that's also a good hashtag one hot take.
It's a hot take, though, because it never happens.
Alec Ingold receiving touchdown. Book it.
I love it.
All right. So
He's due.
We were going to talk about the Dolphins Pro Bowl snubs. But I want to save that for the Patreon. We're going to save that for the bonus episode. I think it's time to make some predictions. I'll get last two one hot takes in here before Mike gives his prediction. Mike Echeverry Leopoldo says Snoop will dominate the Jets defense, and our defense got to play like they played against the Browns, because the Browns offense is similar to the Jets offense, even with this is a really long one hot take.
I know. You gotta be quick, like one hitters, guys.
Yeah. Let's get this win, even if we don't make the playoffs, would be a positive record for the year. DF says Dolphins win, and so do the Broncos.
Robert Ashton, it's long, but I'm just going to sort of summarize this. The Broncos lose. Miami, with 7 seconds left, needs a touchdown to win. McDaniel wasted his timeouts with useless challenges. 3rd and goal, back shoulder fade to Tyreek, and he drops it. That is same old Dolphins. Robert, you get the show. That is same old Dolphins. No timeouts, no challenges, 7 seconds. So it was a fade to the shortest wide receiver on the team, making $30 million, and he drops it. That is same old Dolphins.
Absolutely.
And Cincinnati goes to the playoffs.
Absolutely. All right, Mike. You're in the hot seat. Who you got? I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Predict the game. How do you see this game going? And do the Dolphins make the playoffs?
Okay. I think this game's very low scoring. I think if you're Miami, I don't know how you're scoring points with 2 backup offensive tackles and this backup quarterback. Well, I know he played well last week. That was versus a dead Browns team who did not want to be on the field. But I do think Miami will, by hook or by crook, inch out a win, sneak out a win, grind out a win, however you want to say it. I'm going 17-14. Dolphins win. It's not going to be easy. It's going to come down probably to the 4th quarter, and Jason Sanders makes a kick at some point to win, and they hold on. Dolphins win. The other game, which we need, you got the Broncos versus the Chiefs B squad. Now everyone thinks and like the spread in this game is like enormous. It's like well over 10, I think. I think the Broncos are going to win, but I think the Chiefs are going to make it interesting. Everyone says the Chiefs don't care. They're writing this off. The guys who are playing care. The guys who are playing are going to go out there and try. And I think the Chiefs keep it close, but I think the Broncos still win. I'm not going to do a score prediction, but I do think Miami misses the playoffs, but they win the final game, and the Chiefs will make it interesting to watch and for a fun afternoon at least. But I do think the Broncos still win. Maybe about 7 or 10.
So I think this is going to be a close game. I am rooting for the Dolphins to win. I think that, if Tyler Huntley can play well, and get this offense moving, especially if he could do it with, 2 backup offensive tackles. If Jaylen Waddle doesn't play like he did last week, and he can still pioneer this team to victory, especially with no semblance of a running game, I think it would be really impressive and would speak to him earning himself a spot on this roster next year. That said, if Aaron Rodgers plays in this game, and the signs are that he is, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to lose to Tyler Huntley. I think that this Dolphins defense will keep them in it. I think Tyler Huntley will have moments, and I think it will be close. But I think the Dolphins are going to fall short. And frankly, I think by the time we get to the 4th quarter of this game, I think we're going to be in a close game, and the Broncos are going to start pulling away. And and the writing is going to be on the wall that this game is going to be relatively meaningless. I think the Dolphins lose 20-17. And I think the Broncos take care of business and beat the Chiefs. So it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Dolphins finish the season 8-9 on the outside looking in.
Now, if your prediction comes true, 2 things happen. 1, Miami, when it comes to the draft, will be picking somewhere between like 11 and 13-ish if they lose. But, which also, sometimes there's pleasure and pain. The Jets would have their 5th win, and they'd fall to like bottom of the top 10 and screw the Jets. Or, as I should say, if you want to play the song again here, F the Jets. Fuck the Jets.
Since you were so on point with that segue, I would be remiss if I didn't say this.
Oh, fuck the Jets, fuck the Jets, fuck the fucking Jets. Fuck the Jets, fuck the Jets, fuck the fucking Jets. Fuck the Jets, fuck the Jets, fuck the fucking Jets. Fuck the Jets, fuck the Jets, fuck the Jets. Fuck the the Jets.
Fuck them.
Fuck them.
For Mike, for Josh on vacation, I'm Aaron the Brain saying, as always, take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, go Dolphins!
The Jets deserve all the pain and misery that they get.
Fuck the Jets.